All right, friends, today we are going to be working on Everyday Math Lesson 7.8. Explain the equivalence of fractions in special cases and compare fractions by reasoning about their size. So our math page says Steve is sorting the number sides of his fraction cards into two groups, fractions greater than 1/2 and fractions less than 1/2. He made a mistake. Here's the fractions that are greater than 1/2. Here's the fractions that are less than 1/2. So we're going to put an X on the card that Steve put in the wrong group and show or explain how you decided. So I've printed out our fraction circles, and they should look very familiar to you because we have used them in the classroom. So Steve has 3/4 is greater than 1/2, so I'm going to put a square over 1/4. Steve has 7/8 is greater than 1/4. Steve has 2/2 is greater than 1/4. Steve has 3/8 is greater than 1/4. And Steve has 2/3 that is greater than 1/2. All right, so if we look at our fraction circles here, so Steve said that 3/4 is greater than 1/2. Well, covering up the one piece, you see that he still has half there, so that one is correct. We have 7/8, so here is half. Is that bigger? Yes. Here is 2/2. We can see right there that they are both bigger. Here is 3/8. Oh, now wait a minute. If it was bigger than half, it would be this part and more, but it's not, so we may have to look at that one again. And then we have 2/3. We would have a half line here across the middle, so that one definitely is. All right, let's look at our fractions that are less than 1/2. And our fractions that are less than 1/2 are going to be 1/4, so I'm going to cover up 3 of our fourths. 2/8, that is less than 1/2, so I am going to cover up 2/8. 2/6, that is less than 1/2. 1/3, that is less than 1/2, and then you're going to pretend that this one is all blank. Okay? So is 1/4 less than 1/2? Well, the half would be here, so yes, it is. Is 2/8 less than 1/2? Well, the half would be here, so yes, it is. Is 2/6 less than 1/2? Well, the half would be here, so yes, it is. Is 1/3 less than 1/2? The half would be across here, so yes. And then if we have nothing on this one, then it would also be less than 1/2. So we need to put an X on the 3/8 because 3/8 is less than is greater than 1/2. 3/8 is less than 1/2. Sorry guys, I made a mistake there. So 3/8 is less than 1/2, so the 3/8 should be over here. Okay, and then if you look at what I showed you here on the 3/8, it takes 4/8 to equal 1/2. 3/8 is less than 1/2, so it can't go in the greater than section. So we're going to write it on here. So 3/8 is less than 4/8. 4/8 equals 1/2. So 3/8 is the card that is in the wrong spot. Okay, now we are going to look at our next page. And it says for each problem, you may use any of your fraction tools to help: fraction circles, fraction strips, fraction number line poster, or fraction cards. Well, I know you don't have fraction circles or fraction strips at home, so I printed out what the fraction pieces would look like. So we have 1/6, 1/8, 1/10, 1/3, 1/4, 1/2, and 1/5. So we need to write these fractions in order from smallest to largest, or least to greatest. Now, if you're looking at these, you would think, well, the 1/10 would automatically be the bigger one because the bottom number is bigger. Well, look at the 1/10. That's not the bigger piece, is it? So if you look at the bottom number, the bigger that the denominator gets, or the bottom number, the smaller the piece is. So here we have 1/2. 1/2 is the smallest of the denominators, but it has the biggest piece. So if we're going to write these in order from smallest to largest, then we're actually going to start with the fraction that has the largest number in the denominator. So we would have 1/10. So I'm going to look and see, okay, which one is my next biggest number, and that's going to be the 1/8. Because if you look, 1/8 is just a little bit bigger than 1/10. Okay, so now we have 1/6 and 1/5. Well, we're going to do the next bigger number, which is going to be 6. So 1/6. Then we're going to move to 1/5. Okay, so we have 4 and 3. So 4 is going to be the next smallest. And then we have 1/3. And then if you look, 1/2 is actually the biggest. Okay, so it says, what pattern did you notice? Okay, well, one of the patterns that we notice is that the denominators got smaller. Because if you look, we start out with 10 and then we go to 2. Okay, so then we have these fractions: 2/6, 2/3, 2/8, 2/4, 2/10, and 2/5. Now, is the bottom, or is the top number going to make any difference, the numerator in this one? Probably not, but we'll have to do a little bit of looking. Let's look and see. Okay, so I'm going to have 2/6. So I'm actually just going to draw. So there's 2/6. And we're going to have 2/3. And we're going to have 2/8. And we're going to have 2/4. Oops, I'm going to have to overlap here. Then we're going to have 2/10. And then we're going to have 2/5. The 5th is going to be a little bit harder to draw. Okay, so we want to put these in order from largest to greatest. So if you look at the pieces, it looks like the 2/10 is still going to be the smallest because it's not anywhere near the rest of them. So we're going to start out with 2/10. Okay. And then it looks like the 2/8 is going to be next. And then the 2/6. I know I didn't draw that very well to scale, did I? And then 2/4. Oh, it should have been the 2/5 first, and then 2/4. And then the 2/3. So the pattern that we are going to put for this one is also the same, that the denominators get smaller. Okay, and it asks how the fractions are same or different. Well, did we change the numerator any? No, so the numerators stay the same. Okay. Then says, write a rule for ordering fractions with the same numerator. So that would be, let's see, let's looking over here with the same numerator. We were looking at the denominator, and so the larger the denominator, the smaller the piece. So we're going to write that the larger the denominator, boy, did I mess that up. Let's try that again. Denominator, the smaller the pieces, so the numerator doesn't change the order. All right, friends, that's the end of lesson 7.8. Thank you, and I hope you have a good day.